Good morning, Dan and Amy. So President Trump, cabinet meeting in his vacation home in Bedminster, New Jersey yesterday.
It's a working vacation home.
Well, obviously he had a cabinet meeting.
Yeah, he sure did.
And here's what he had to say about that puppet that runs North Korea.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
I think he's watching a little bit too much Game of Thrones.
Really?
The fire and fury like this world has never seen. He's going to unite the seven kingdoms. He's sitting on the Iron Throne. It's a little
great analogy.
I'm not. I mean, it's not offensive to me. It's just not. What's the word? Presidential, I guess. It's just a little.
Well, what has he done that is presidential?
Well, there's stuff, but that's just a little juvenile. Sebastian Gorka, who's one of his advisors on topics such as this, had this to say about the sort of giving his threat assessment on the North Korean autocracy.
Think about all the people who not just underestimated but criticized this president. What did we just achieve through the good offices of Ambassador Haley, Secretary Tillerson? We have a 15-0 vote at the UN Security Council, including permanent members like China and Russia, that have brought the most stringent package of sanctions against North Korea we have ever seen. They have backed themselves into a corner, and they need to back down.
They need to back down, and Gorka referred to the North Korean regime and Kim Jong-un as a paper tiger.
Yeah, so how is this being received on Capitol Hill? Well, it seems to be some bipartisan opposition.
I take exception to the president's comments because you got to be sure that you can do what you say you're going to do. I think that the rotund ruler in Pyongyang is not crazy, but he certainly is ready to go to the brink. The great leaders that I've seen, they don't threaten unless they are ready to act. Yeah. And I'm not sure that President Trump is ready to act.
Yeah, I mean, the whole kind of discussion about the word choice, I think, is ancillary, certainly to the ability that the Trump administration did demonstrate to get UN Security Council buy-in for the imposition of sanctions, and getting Russia and China to buy in, no small feat. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Jed Babbin. He is a contributor to the Washington Times and the American Spectator. He's a former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense. Jed, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you guys.
So what Trump's reaction to Kim Jong-un and the approach the Trump administration has taken more generally to this point in North Korea and its efficacy?
Well, I think Trump's remarks, I might have said it differently myself, but I think he's in line. I mean, look, John McCain hasn't been right about anything in foreign policy since, 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, that's true.
The basic point here is Kim has been shouting at us for years, and this is the first time an American president has said anything in response. Now, it's not going to have any effect on Kim, and Lord only knows the actions of the United Nations is not going to have any effect on anything. But the fact of the matter is what President Trump said was not out of line. The Trump administration, though, pardon me, is in a very tough spot. The president has said just this morning, he sent out by Twitter, that the most important thing that I've done so far is to renovate and modernize our nuclear force. Well, I'm sorry, but that hasn't happened yet. And the question really is, what are we prepared to do? Comes back to that great old line in the Untouchables movie by Sean Connery. What are you prepared to do? Right now, we are not prepared to do much. And the fact of the matter is, we need to do a lot more. We've had several presidents now who have neglected this crisis in warning, and we've got, frankly, Iran in the same status as North Korea, although they're being less open about it. And every president from Bill Clinton on has neglected these situations. We also have not had any president since Ronald Reagan really bolster our missile defenses, although they've been built gradually, and we're now going to be in a position, we are in a position, where we are in tremendously greater danger because presidents have neglected building our ballistic missile defenses. So we're not in a very strong position. Mr. Trump is wrong in saying that he has modernized our nuclear forces. And right now we're in a position where, war in the Korean Peninsula is not a certainty by any means, and Lord only knows no one wants to see it, but it's quite likely.
So what's China's role in stopping North Korea? And isn't China the ones that supplied them with the materials to build a nuclear warhead in the first place?
Well, they may have participated, they probably did participate in supplying nuclear materials to North Korea. But don't forget, Iran and North Korea are partnered in this. For heaven's sake, there's a train literally running between Tehran and North Korea. It takes 2 weeks, for each trip, each leg. But the basic point is those two are doing what they want to do covertly, and I'll bet you that train is not carrying tourists. So the Chinese, they may have some marginal role in this. I don't think they can control Kim anymore. I think they don't want to admit it, but although he's a client of theirs and depends on them for, food and fuel oil, mainly the two things that they depend on any country to give them because they can't do it themselves, food and fuel. I think the Chinese are not going to be willing to cut that off. They haven't been so far, and we have not been even willing to sanction the Chinese companies that deal with North Korea. So sanctions are just not going to work. We're in a position where North Korea and, by the way, Iran are not going to be disarmed peacefully. So we're either going to have to live with this or there's going to be a very big and very damaging and destructive war.
I want to switch gears and the internal leadership of the West Wing with General Kelly now in place. There is a Wall Street Journal yesterday opining on the apparent consternation between Steve Bannon and H.R. McMaster, the president's national security advisor. It'd be interesting how you come down on this as a military man yourself, but also an anti-establishment type. How you view McMaster and Kelly against some of the more insurgency inclined like Bannon?
Well, I can't speak much about Steve Bannon. I don't know him, and I've never talked to the man. I don't know McMaster either, but I know of McMaster. And I will tell you that he is absolutely unqualified and frankly disqualified from that job for several reasons. The first of which is he has a completely unrealistic view of Islam. He has insisted and continues to insist that Islam has no relationship to terrorism. And you can go back to the Quran and study Islamic jurisprudence, and you can determine that he is dead bang wrong no matter how you read it. You can also look at the fact that he is holding over an awful lot of Obama loyalists in very, very senior positions there. There are four. You remember Ben Rhodes?
Oh, yeah.
The guy who was...
Novelist.
The
Echo Chamber.
The slimy guy who was, the echo chamber and all the rest of that. He's the one who changed the Benghazi talking points to make sure they told lies. He's gone. But four people who are working there under his direct supervision are still there at Bannon's request. I'm not Bannon's request, at McMaster's request. So that is someone who I would not trust with the National Security Advisor post. And, regardless of what Steve Bannon wants to do, I think that the president would be very well to rid himself of McMaster.
Well, this is interesting because I raised this issue. Who were we talking to earlier this week? I raised this issue, but it was about the news that came out of the transom the end of last week that McMaster had given Susan Rice her security clearance in perpetuity. But yet Susan Rice is supposed to be somebody that's being looked at with respect to improper, questionable, perhaps even illegal unmasking of individuals, and yet McMaster's extending her this courtesy. Why?
Well, again, McMaster is himself. He may not even believe it himself, but he grew up, he got promoted to high rank under the Obama system of the military. And in that system, you either bought into the president's politics and ideology or you were not going to get a promotion. So McMaster is, whether he realizes it or not, an Obama, and he needs to be gotten out of there, quite frankly. He is not someone who you can rely on to get good advice on military national security matters.
Well, we know it wasn't President Trump's first choice to head an NSA. Who do you think would be a good replacement for him?
Oh, there are dozens of people. There are all sorts of people out there in the military, outside of the military. I mean, if I had... if the
Maybe
president
a
said,
certain Jed
Jed
Babbin.
Babbin.
No. I don't want to work that hard, boys and girls. But I know a few people who would be excellent in that role, not the least of which is, well, he's probably not going to leave his current post, which is the presidency of the University of Kansas. My old friend, General Dick Myers, who was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he is one of the smartest SOBs I've ever known. And if Dick could be hornswoggled into that job, it would be just an enormous improvement.
All right, he is Jed Babbin, former United States Deputy Undersecretary of Defense. Kind of coasting now. Doesn't want to work hard, but he does contribute to the Washington Times and the American Spectator. Jed, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, guys.
You're the best. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.